Hey there, everybody, and thanks for checking back on my YouTube channel. I'm your host, Charm Baker, and this is Video Book Talk. This is actually a piggyback off of the very first book talk discussion that I did, where I talked about my book, Skipping Childhood. And the reason I'm piggybacking off of that is because, as this particular discussion title mentions, writers need courage in order to write. And the reason I say that is because it takes courage to inject personal experiences into your work, whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction. As a writer, it is inevitable that at some point in time you will end up putting things of a personal nature into your work, things about yourself, and sometimes things about other people. And that's why I'm addressing the topic of courage. What really made me think about this is a television show that I've been writing. There's a show called Queen Sugar, and a lot of you are probably familiar with it. It's written by Ava DuVernay. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She wrote the television series, but the book was actually written by Natalie Baszile, Baszile. Queen Sugar is a story that deals with a black family that owns property in the rural South, and I won't even really go into the whole description of what Queen Sugar is about. It's a really good book. I guess it's a good book. I haven't read the book, but it's definitely a good show. And I can only imagine that it would be a good book, because usually the books are better. And if that's the case, it's got to be a great book, because the show is really, really good. But anyway, my point in sharing information about this particular show is because I'm into season 3. And in season 3, it deals with one of the characters in the show who is a writer and now author. And as an author, she's written this story about her family, and detailed, intimate details, as a matter of fact, about various members in her family. And so it got me to thinking not only about the courage that it takes for us to write about things that are specific to ourselves, but also about other individuals. But it also started to make me think about, to what extent do we cross the line as writers? It's one thing to have courage and share your own truth, but to what extent do you cross the line when you start getting into other people's truths? You know, is it up to you to share someone else's truth? And it really made me think about it as a writer, probably because I'm a writer, and because I'm sure I've had to encounter similar like situations. And even in my own book, Skipping Childhood, so much of the material is specific to my own life. But rather than inject a lot of what happened to my siblings, I left that out. I created enough of a fictional character that if you know me or knew me growing up, there's a lot of what you could and could not discern is real and not real. And I purposely made it that way. Now, back to the story of Queen Sugar. This author has basically blown up the lives of all her family members by sharing her own truths in a book that is known not only to be autobiographical, so when people read it, they already know, yes, it's definitely written about her and her family. But also, unlike me being an undiscovered author, this writer was already a known writer. So she's known, her family members are known, and so it really made me question, the ethics of writing and sharing that kind of information. So what I did, I ended up going back to the library, or not going back, but going to the library and locating the book, The Courage to Write, because years ago when I first started writing, this is the book that helped me. It helped me to learn and understand and to make the decision to be that I wanted to be a professional writer. It helped me to understand that other writers were suffering some of the same things that I was suffering, and being worried about. You know, how do you disclose information? How do you share your truth? Do you want to share your truth? Do you want people to always suppose that every single thing that you write is about you, when that is not necessarily the case? So a lot of the issues that I was having with, as far as being able to be brave in my writing, this book helped me to solve. But one of the things it talked about in talking about courage, there's a quote in here. It quoted an author. It quoted the author William Faulkner, and William Faulkner, the famous author, wrote, "A writer's only responsibility is to his art." And it gets this particular chapter in the book. The chapter is called "Will Everyone See Through Me?" That particular chapter in the book gets into the ethics of, sharing other people's business, basically. And it talks about how we as writers have to straddle this thin line of putting authenticity into our work versus exposing people's business or intruding on people's privacy. And it's really a serious issue. It's really something to think about as an author, and I just thought it would be a good topic to discuss and share with new fledgling writers, those who are thinking about what kind of writer that they want to become, thinking about what kind of things that they want to write about. When you think about all that, you need to think about the courage that it's going to take for you to write the things that you want to write. So anyway, hopefully just that little bit of information about this book. It's a good book. Get it. I definitely urge you, if you're a new writer, if you're a struggling writer, if you're an author that's looking back and want to, remember some points and having trouble with whatever, it's just a good book to read, if you're in the industry. If you haven't already tuned in to Queen Sugar, I suggest you start watching it, because it's definitely a show worth watching. If you've read the book Queen Sugar and you'd like to leave some comments about it, or leave us a few comparisons, or even just leave a comment about this discussion, and the content of what we're discussing, I welcome you to do so. And of course, as always, I welcome you to submit to the channel and to continue visiting the video book talk series. So until the next time, you know the drill. Let's talk books.